Welcome back for another video. So it's a very special video today. For the first time ever on the channel, we have a guest, and it's not just any guest. We've got Mark McGeskin here. You might know as the FPL General. He's got 3 finishes inside the top 500, including 10K last season. I've rounded that down for you, Mark. I think it was 10.1K, but it sounds better, 10K.
We'll call it a 10K.
Yeah, so it's good to have you here, Mark. I was saying off air to Mark that before I was doing YouTube, I used to listen to his athletic podcast religiously on my commute to the office. So really, really cool to get to chat to you, Mark. So thanks for being here. How are we doing? Are you back in the groove of FPL yet?
Trying to resist getting back into it. Just still 3 weeks to go. Before I get into it, I want to say thanks for having me on as well. I've been watching a lot of your stuff on YouTube. You know, you're absolutely smashing it on social media as well. I didn't realize this was the first actual guest, so very privileged to be the first one, and hopefully we'll see a few more on the channel as well. So great to see more people like yourself going full-time FPL as well. So hopefully we'll get a few more joining this small clique over the next course of the next season as well. So yeah, it's been enjoying the downtime, and like I said, I deliberately try not to spend too much time on the FPL website, which doesn't make much sense when it's your full-time job, but I don't like to overtinker. I basically put a draft together for this stream. That was the first one since the auto pick, so it's very much just kind of absorbing information, you know, reading articles, seeing what's happening in pre-season. And I'm going to try as much as I can until 4 or 5 days before kickoff. That's when the real, you know, tinkering will start, and right. I'll have everyone in my team at some point, I'm sure, over those 4 or 5 days.
It's great to hear that you watch some of my stuff, so I appreciate that as well, Mark. And yeah, I agree. It's really cool to see lots of new channels popping up throughout the pre-season. And if anyone's on the fence about it, I do suggest just jump in and give it a go. Treat it as a hobby, but you never know. A year ago, I didn't think anyone would care about what I've got to say, and here I am doing YouTube as my full-time job now. So anyway,
yeah, exactly. If you're passionate about it, you gotta just go for it. You know, like I like what you said. Treat it as a hobby. If you go in with that approach, you never know what will happen, and you know, doors open. So yeah, if you're very passionate about FPL, you know, go for it. YouTube, podcasting, writing articles, just get stuck in, because it's such a great community.
Yeah, so great to have you here, Mark. Obviously, you're here today to share your current FPL draft. And I have to say, when I asked you to come on, I feared for the worst that you might have a very template team, because I made a video a week or so ago, and the template is really strong this season. Obviously, a few players have come in cheaper than we expected. The defense looks irresistible. But you delivered, and you've got a draft here that I actually really like, and it's very different to many I've seen. So maybe... where do we start? One thing that stood out to me is you've got 3 premiums here, which I thought was very interesting, because the template's 2. Did you want to talk through some of your picks in your current draft?
Yeah, so obviously I think Salah Haaland is extremely popular. You mentioned template there and things like ownership. It's something I try and swerve again as much as possible. I try not to let ownership come into my thinking. It is hard nowadays because it's plastered over everywhere. You listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos and stuff, but even little things on Twitter. Recently I've muted the word template, muted the word ownership, effective ownership, but it still creeps up from time to time. But I try essentially just to kind of simplify FPL and just try and zone in on the players I like, whether they've got 5% ownership or 55% ownership. And that's in the back of my mind. I think Haaland, obviously one of the best players in the world, joining one of the best teams in the world, it is a bit of a no-brainer. But part of me also, really likes Harry Kane. Harry Kane's not in this draft, but part of me is tempted to go without Haaland to begin with and go Kane and maybe even captain Kane Gameweek 1, because I just think Southampton defensively is such a good fixture for attackers. So this draft, I think I've got Vardy up front, right. Just a little bit cheaper than Kane. Again, just had so many good times with Vardy, especially in early weeks of seasons. Had him a couple of seasons ago instead of Timo Werner, and I think with the prices you can get away with it. You've got, even with Salah, Haaland and Vardy in this one, you've still got a big defence. You've got double Liverpool defence with Trent and Robertson, managed to have double City as well with Ederson and Cancelo, and even then you've still got a few decent 6.5 midfielders. I've got Rashford in there, who scored again today, that's probably going to add another 5% to his ownership. And Ward-Prowse is in there as well. So yeah, that's just kind of, like I said, it's very early. I haven't really done any deep tinkering. It's a quick draft, but it's I think some of these players do have a very good chance of staying there come game week 1.
Yeah, and no Spurs is an interesting one because obviously last season both Son and Kane were really impressive, and it's arguably the best Game Week 1 fixture. Maybe Liverpool away to Fulham as well, but Southampton at home. You can easily see Son or Kane hauling in that one, but most of us are overlooking them. And obviously it's Salah and Haaland, the two most popular picks. And it is a gamble, you bet against Haaland with his ownership. What if he starts off with a flyer, and Southampton pull off an upset? So there is that side to it, but it's interesting that you say you don't pay too much attention to ownership. But yeah, the other thing that left up, gone.
Yeah, sorry, Colin. Just on the ownership again, straight away, those of us who are tempted not to get Haaland, you've got the FOMO already. Like you said, what if he gets off to a flyer? But I try not to let that come into my thinking too much. You can look at it another way. What if he's a little bit slow to start? It is a new league. What if Pep, rotates him a bit more than we expect in the first few game weeks? And going back to Tottenham, the thing I don't like about this draft most is that there's no Tottenham players. Perisic is popular. I think he could be a great asset. Son hurt me so much last season. I finished 1 point outside the top 10k. I think if I owned Son for one extra game week than I did at any point, I probably would have got the top 10k. But yeah, Kane and Son, it's not just the first fixture against Southampton. I think the first 4, 5, 6 games are really good for Spurs. Just really like what Conte's doing in the transfer market. I expect them to start strong, especially when you see those pictures of their pre-season training and guys getting sick at the side of the pitch and all that. So then you're going to come out of the block strong game week 1 before Champions League and stuff kicks in. So I think by the time we get to game week 1, there'll be at least one Tottenham player in my team. Maybe even 2. Kane up front has probably got the best chance, and Perisic might make an appearance in defence as well. I was hoping Doherty would be the only right wing back, but it looks like Jed Spence is on his way. So, right. Yeah. But even still, Doherty first 3 or 4 weeks might be okay. So that's on my mind as well. But yeah, certainly, I certainly want to get a Tottenham attacker in for that Southampton fixture game week 1, and whether it's just a question: is it Salah, Haaland, and Kane? Or replacing Vardy with Kane, or do you be brave and go without Haaland for a few weeks with an early wildcard likely anyway? So that's what I need to chew on for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because obviously if you do end up going Son over Kane, then you're going to be pairing him up with Salah. I presume Salah's an absolute lock for you. So it's that other thing where it kind of it gives you less flexibility if you did want to switch to a Haaland. Or, if Son wasn't delivering and Kane was, that sort of thing. You're looking at least 2 moves to get there. One thing that was also interesting to me is obviously Diaz is a really popular pick among the 8 mil forwards. Right now, I think he's the most owned of the 8 mil forwards. It's interesting this season, there's a lot of 8 mil midfielders, not forwards. We've got about 7 of them, and they're all at quite a convenient price point, where you could potentially hop between them. But you've gone for the double up with Robertson over Diaz. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I just absolutely love Robertson in FPL. I love him as a player and I love him in FPL. So I think I'm going to find it quite hard to go without him game week 1. Trent and Salah are definites. They're probably the only 2 in the team that are definitely not going anywhere. And then it's, do you go Diaz in midfield or do you go Robertson for the double up? And I'm undecided because I do think Diaz is a fantastic price. Watched the Manchester United-Liverpool friendly a couple of days ago, and I thought he looked really sharp first half as well. So, passed the eye test, and he could just make a mockery of the price tag. But I think for me, again, I try and, a couple of things I try and do. I try not to let ownership come into my thinking too much, and I also just try and hone in on players that I really like watching. I've had good times with him in FPL before, and Robertson is one of those players. I had him, for the final quarter of last season. And he was just amazing. He was out. I had him with Trent, but having both of those guys was really good for me. In terms of the 8 million midfielders, I think it's one of the trickiest positions because there's lots of good options. Saka, Kulusevski, Mason Mount. But part of me is thinking, I think it might be a good season to leave 0.5 in the bank in game week 1, because if you go for, let's say you go for a Luis Diaz. Let's say he picks up a hamstring injury game week 1, and you want to move to the other 8 million midfielder who has scored a brace in game week 1 very quickly. Saturday night, they're going to be 8.1. If you don't have that cash, you can't make the switch. So I think you leave your 0.5 in the bank for that flexibility if you're going for an 8 million midfielder. Then the other option is, do you just plug in Jared Bowen, even though the fixture is not great? The first one, I think it's Liverpool. But again, you're just going for the more expensive player in that position. If you go Bowen the first few weeks, if he continues to do what he did last season, he could be a good asset at 8.5. But if he doesn't, then you've got all your 8 million guys. So that's something I think we need to think about as well. But yeah, I think when it comes to the 8 million guys, I do like Diaz most. So I'm not going to rule out going for him over Robertson. Once game week one gets
so he's your favourite. Closer. Yeah, and obviously he comes in 0.5 mil more, but it's a good point. There's no reason why Bowen doesn't start well. It's Man City, they host Gameweek 1. Yeah. I think last season they scored in all but one home game, so there's no reason why Bowen couldn't get something there, become a great option beyond that. And that obviously that 0.5 mil on the bank could come in handy as well. It was something I did last season. I started the season with 0.5 mil, which I've never done before. And ended up being crucial for me to make a few moves that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. I think I ended up picking up Jota when I otherwise wouldn't have been able to. So it's an interesting one, and I'm definitely open to doing the same again. Just a notch below the 8 mil mids is obviously the Man United mids. Obviously there's Bruno Fernandes for 10 as well. You've got Rashford in your draft. What are your thoughts on Man United this season after their price cuts? Rashford in particular, he had the biggest price cut in the game, 3 mil down on last season. Do you think there's value there?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's going to be value, I think, in all positions at Manchester United. Just the question is it going to be in the early weeks, or are we going to have to wait a few weeks for that to happen? I'm definitely open to a punt in game week 1, and Rashford's the one that stands out to me. It's just price, because 3 million of a drop is crazy. That could end up being a mistake by FPL Towers. If he's saying all the right things in pre-season as well. He's feeling refreshed. He's looking forward to a fresh start. He's got a couple of goals already in pre-season. And if Ronaldo goes, less rotation for him as well in that attack if we don't sign anyone. So very much open to a Rashford. I think Sancho's looked really sharp in these pre-season games as well. We know he is a world-class player, but we haven't really seen it at Old Trafford yet. And even Bruno at 10, a couple of seasons ago, he's a 12.5 player scoring, 250 points. Right. Yeah. If Ronaldo goes, gets the penalties back, Bruno could be back on the radar. I've actually ordered one of those display posters you can get for the wall behind me. It's going to be Bruno Fernandes. It's arriving in a couple of days.
Really?
Time. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he's going to have a big season. And if he's going to be on the wall behind me all year, I'm probably going to have to own him at some point. So yeah, I think you avoid the De Gea, you avoid the defenders to begin with. There's loads of better defenses out there, but certainly the attackers are. And I think you can take a punt on one of them game week 1. I don't think you get more than one Manchester United player. But certainly with those prices, they're enablers as well. If you want to go Salah, Haaland, these big guys, Kane, Rashford just works.
Exactly, yeah. And I think Martial's an interesting one, 7 mil. Obviously, he was kind of the forgotten man last season, went away on loan. But yeah, he's on my watch list as well. He has a good pre-season. He could even make his way into my Game Week 1 draft, especially because there's such a lack of cheap forwards. Most of us have got Jesus, I think, after Haaland. He's the second most owned forward. But yeah, I think Martial could be an interesting one as well. So one thing I did want to ask you, do you have any particular wildcard plan, or do you kind of just wait till you get to the point where your team requires it?
Last couple of seasons, I've always gone in just with an open mind. I don't like going in and saying, right, I'm going to wildcard first international break, because we just don't know what's going to happen. Your game week 1 team could be brilliant, or it could be absolutely rubbish, and you could be missing 10 important players, and then you need to wildcard early. So I'll go in with an open mind. I do think this season though, it's very different. You've got the World Cup, you've got the unlimited transfers between 16 and 17. So I think we're going to see lots and lots of managers wildcard early. I just think it makes sense, because game week 1, we've got zero information on the season. Come game week 2, game week 3, we've got an awful lot more information. And then I think around game week 4, game week 5, when Champions League kicks in, it might be a time where people move away from the rotation risk Champions League, Europa League teams, and maybe go for the steady eddies from teams like Leicester and stuff like that. So yeah, I think I'm going in with an open mind, but I can see myself already wildcarding game week 3, game week 4.
Yeah, that was the point I wanted to make. It's it feels like we've said it for the last few seasons in a row now, but there's no season quite like this one either, because like you say, we've got the World Cup more or less down the middle of this season. I think it's between game week 16 and 17. For anyone that doesn't know, we get unlimited transfers over that spell. So in a way, it's a reset for the entire player base. Whereas obviously historically, say you wildcard in the first international break, game week 8 or whatever, it could be 20 game weeks or so until you're using your second wildcard. So it's a long, long way. Whereas this season, it's almost split up into obviously 2 halves, but maybe even quarters, because you've got the first quarter before you use your wildcard. You've got that quarter from the wildcard to the reset. Then you've got those other 2 quarters, again, same as the first half. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if the meta, if I can use the word, will change at all in terms of how people approach this season.
Yeah.
But you're right, I know the wildcard might be the one.
I really like the way it's going to be broken up by the World Cup, and the wildcard strategy is going to be different this season, because I think it gives you the opportunity to be a lot more aggressive. There's going to be a strong template game week 1, there always is, but because most people are likely to wildcard early anyway, it gives you the opportunity. Just if you're brave, it could be, it could set you up for the best season you've ever had. If you go against the highly owned players game week, let's even just say the first 3 game weeks or first 2 game weeks, and we know anything can happen in a short space of time. If you go against those highly owned guys, and if your guys do the business, and the likes of your Haalands are a little bit slow to start, you could be in the top 10k early doors. If you're willing to take that chance. And I think it's, people often say, stick with the pack early doors and take your risk later in the season. But maybe this season, why not take your risks at the beginning? Maybe it's a low risk time to do it. If it doesn't work out, yep, first 3 game weeks, you've got 35 weeks to chip away at it, and you'll still probably end up with a respectable rank. So I think people should be thinking that way as well. Maybe we can be a bit more aggressive game week 1, because we're probably going to wildcard early.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So you mentioned 10k there. What's your season targets for this season, if you have one at all?
I always try not to get obsessed about rank, but I feel every season. So it was the same last season. I was on livefpl.net during games 3 or 4 times on a Saturday, looking at live rank, and it's pointless. It really is pointless. Live FPL, it's such a fantastic website. It's too good because it sucks you in like a drug. Yeah. Like you need to see your live rank. So I finished 1 point outside the top 10k, which I think might end up being the best thing that ever happened to me, because it makes me realize it doesn't really matter, because I was absolutely delighted to finish, I think it was like 10,400 whatever. Brilliant rank when there's 9 million teams.
Of course,
if you offered me that right now again for this season, I'll take 10,200 if you offered me. So my goal this season is to not have a rank goal, and that's going to be a challenge. But it's basically just to try and just play with a bit more freedom.
Yeah.
Take off those shackles of I need to get a good rank, I'm a content creator, etc., etc., etc. Play with more freedom. Like I said, this season I think it's perfect for a bit of experimentation. Maybe playing a little bit more aggressively than you usually would, which will be hard for me because I'm a very patient kind of manager. I've played the same way for years and years, and it's quite effective. But I do want to try and be a little bit more aggressive. So I'm doing all them things. I'm trying not to look at ownership. I'm not looking at the template team as much as possible. And I just want to hone in on picks I like. And I'm probably just going to really try and attack fixtures for the first 3 or 4 weeks and not really worry about, how many people own this player, this guy's a differential. Just try and attack the fixtures, and then probably wildcard early. So yeah, I'm going to try stay away from live rank websites this season.
I'm glad you said that though, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that did that a lot last season. But yeah, it's one of those, you check your rank and you might be on a green arrow, and then something happens, your clean sheet gets wiped, you hit refresh and suddenly you're on a red. So yeah, I'm the same. I'm going to consciously make an effort to wait until the games have been played, before. But it's interesting as well that you talk about the pressure there. Maybe this isn't very relatable for those watching, but obviously when you're making content and you've got that, you're constantly putting out content for your followers and so on, there is a bit of pressure there. And last season I had much less of a following, and you talked about experimentation, and I ended up using a bench boost outside of a double for the first time ever, because I thought there was an opportunity there and there was no pressure really, because I didn't have much of a following, and it came off, and it was a green arrow at the time from 300th to second overall. And I'm hoping I can play without that pressure again. But yeah, it's an interesting point you make there about the pressure. Definitely something I'll be thinking about.
Yeah, certainly, people like myself and yourself, when you are putting yourself out there, when you're putting your team out there every week, there's a lot of eyes on it. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of piranhas just waiting for you to fail as well. People love to see the content creators have a terrible season or have a terrible game week. So yeah, it definitely does add pressure. If you're doing a podcast, I always find, I'll usually put my podcast out maybe on a Monday or a Tuesday, and you'll say a lot of stuff in the podcast, and when it gets to Friday, sometimes you're thinking, right, I kind of need to stick with what I said on Tuesday because people have listened to it, but I want to do something different now. But things change over the course of a week. But I think I've always been good at that. I'll often say things on a Tuesday. I'm most likely to buy this player, I'm most likely to captain this player. But then if it comes to Friday night and there's new information or my opinion has changed, I'll quite happily just go against what I said on the podcast. And at the end of the day, it is my team, and you've got to do what's right for you. But there's certainly a challenge that comes with being a content creator, and you just got to try and manage it as best you can.
So who's winning the league this season?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be Manchester United anyway. So I think it'll be. Pains me to say it, but I think it'll be Man City again. I think if you're winning the league already, and then you add Haaland, I mean, who can stop that train? So I think Liverpool will run them close again. But interesting to see how they. Yeah, I think Mane's a huge loss to them. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage without him. I'm sure they'll be fine. Made some really good signings. Looking forward to seeing the new guys. I do think Luis Diaz will have a big season. But yeah, Manchester City for me, I think.
Yeah, interesting on the subject of Man City. Obviously, they've sold a fair few players this window, even strengthened rivals. We didn't get a chance to talk about Sterling. Obviously, there is the tier of premiums just below the big hitters, like the Sterlings, the Vardy, the Bruno Fernandes. What do you think about Sterling at Chelsea? Do you think he'll become an option, or you're not going there?
Initially, it doesn't really fill me with too much excitement. And I think it's probably, he hasn't really been in the FPL, in our FPL team for quite a while now. Maybe that's playing into my thoughts as well. But hopefully, when you start for him as well, we'll bring him back into our thoughts, because all you need to do is go back and look at his FPL history. That guy was getting incredible numbers of goals and assists just a couple of seasons ago. So could be amazing at 10 million. But to begin with, for me, I would prefer a Vardy or even a Bruno. If Ronaldo's not going to be featuring, I think I'd rather go Bruno for more of a talisman at Manchester United.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, I won't keep you any longer. I appreciate you coming on. It's been great to chat FPL with you, and thanks for sharing your first draft. Wish you all the best for the new season as well. And obviously, if you guys aren't following Mark, it's FPL General on Twitter, and I highly recommend the Athletic podcast as well. Still my go-to podcast. So yeah, Mark, it's a pleasure to chat with you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure's been all mine, mate. Keep up the good work, and best of luck for the new season as well.
Yeah, you too, mate. I'll do the FPL General salute. Cheers, Mark.
Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye.